a Bulldog radio podcast.
The Ferris State Bulldogs have upset the nation's number 2 ranked team. Wide open! Taylor is going to take this one to the house! Touchdown Bulldogs!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the most valuable sports podcast. We're finally back. Brandon Worth, Joe Nagy, and we got an absolute banger for the people today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going? Got a great episode, honestly, Brandon. Super cool. Brody Keiser from the athletic communication staff of Ferris State joining us in just a second for a really great interview. Brody's a good friend of ours on the Ferris State Fantasy Football podcast. I mean, I've had that podcast, and I don't even know the name of it. What a great time. But other than that, going to be a great episode for you guys. Brandon, what we got on deck?
Yeah, I got a lot. Ferris State postseason beginning for soccer as well as volleyball, as well as recapping all the chaos in basketball, football, hockey, and cross country, as well as a lot to chat
meat
about.
And potatoes, basically.
Yeah, a lot of meat and potatoes, as well as the World Series, and we talked Detroit in Motown.
Huge
sports
weekend
world.
for Detroit sports.
It was. So we'll break that down and more. And, I mean, it's an absolute beautiful day, Joe. Beautiful day in the neighborhood, as Mr. Rogers once
Sun
said.
is shining, air in our lungs. God has blessed us with another day.
Absolutely. We got mics on, and we got ourselves back in the studio. Finally.
Life's looking up is all we got to say.
Absolutely. But without further ado,
let's swing it to the interview.
Now joined in studio, Brody Keiser of Ferris State Athletics is with us. Brody, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on, fellas. Glad to be here.
Brody, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Glad to have you. Brody's part of the athletic communication staff with me and Brandon. It's always a good time having him in the show. But first question for you, Brody. A little bit new to the athletic communication staff. Me and Brandon have been on for a little bit. But, what was that like getting on the team and, reaching out to Rob and stuff like that and getting yourself adversed in the whole world of Ferris athletics?
Man, it was really interesting because working in athletics was one thing that I've always, wanted to do, and I just didn't get around to it until this year, unfortunately. And now that I've started working in athletics, I wish I'd done it sooner. Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, but no, it was a great experience. I reached out to Harrison last year and just said, hey, what do you have for me? And he goes, oh, we'll have something, so we'll start you up in the fall. And I started my first day actually was doing football media session with Coach Anise, and from there, it was just started to do some different things and gotten a lot of great experience. And so far, it's been terrific. I couldn't ask for a better internship with Ferris Athletics.
Yeah, and you mentioned you've done a lot of different things. You cover a lot of the media interview sessions for Ferris State football and all the other sports, as well as do statistics and for other sports. So just talk about being able to work with all those different sports, and especially in different occupations, because a lot of people just don't do that with their normal job.
Well, I think that's the great thing about not just an internship with Ferris, but college athletics at the D2 level, right? You're not so specialized in just doing stats for a certain sport or just doing media interviews or post games, things like that. You can do a little bit of everything. And the opportunity here at Ferris is just great. And I think that's the part that I enjoy the most, right, is just being able to do all of those different things and get experience doing all those different things and working a little bit with Photoshop to do some graphics type stuff and gaining a lot of skills that are going to be really necessary as I go into my career after Ferris.
Yeah, for sure. And especially, speaking of just doing a lot of things, all three of us are going to be sharing the call for hockey color and stuff like that. Going into college, I know that freshman year you wanted to be the beat reporter for the Saints and kind of do that type of stuff. But as your career has kind of changed, especially in college, and kind of morphed into different things, what's it kind of looking like now? Like what you want to do after college? Is it more stuff that you've been doing here? Has it kind of changed, or does it stay the same?
That's a great question, because you're right. For the longest time, I thought I was going to be a journalist. And that's one of the reasons why I was actually not an intern for athletics, because I was just kind of putting all my eggs into the torch basket, right? But now that I've become an intern, I've realized that there's so much more out there in the world of athletics. And yeah, I think I do want to try to do something with college athletics immediately after school. Now, obviously, if there was an opportunity to be the lead reporter for the Saints at some point, or for any professional team, that would be still my dream goal, or dream job, I guess. Recently, though, gotten a lot more into fantasy football podcasting.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. We do have a fantasy football podcast, three of us. But no, that's actually, as of right now, what my end result goal would be, is to have a fantasy football podcast of my own where I could do, put my writing skills to the test by writing research articles about fantasy, doing research that way, and then just talking about fantasy football day in, day out, some of the professional podcasters do.
Yeah, of course. Shameless plug here for the Ferris Fantasy Show on the Bulldog Radio Network. So you can find that out on our link tree as well to find all those episodes. We've been hammering out some bangers recently. But in the world of fantasy football, there's so much to explore, as you mentioned, with the research. And, I mean, it's going to continue for years on years we're in, especially now that we have sports gambling in a big prominence within the state. But what really brought you to fantasy football? Because I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of different stories. Like, I know my church youth group got me into it. That's where it all started for me. And I know Joe probably has a whole completely different story, how he got into Ferris fantasy football. Well, I guess fantasy football in general. But where did that start for you?
It's actually funny because when I was in middle school, I thought I had like this preconceived notion that fantasy football was sports betting. And I was like, oh, that's stupid. I'll never do that. I'm in middle school, right? And then one of my buddies, when I went into my 8th grade year or freshman year, I can't remember now exactly, but he's like, hey, we have a spot open in my league with my dad and my mom and some of their friends. You want to join fantasy football? And I was like, well, I don't know anything about it. I don't know how to bet. And he's like, dude, it's not betting. You just draft a team and play against other teams. And I was like, well, okay, whatever, I'll try it. And first year in, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I think I drafted like Marshawn Lynch in the year where he got hurt the first week of the season. It was terrible. I had Andrew Luck that season where he threw like 2,800 yards and was just horrible. But I loved it. I loved the fact that I got to follow NFL games, follow players, dive into stats, because numbers was always something I was kind of good with. And so putting it to something that I could apply to a game was a lot of fun. And then from there on out, it just grew. I started getting more invested in like reading research stuff about fantasy football, doing a ton of mock drafts in the off season. And it got to the point where come July in the summer times, I was like, all right, I'm just ready to play fantasy football. And so it's just kind of grown from there.
That's cool.
For sure. And on top of your athletics internship, you are the sports editor for The Torch. I mean, you mentioned that a little bit already. You know, what's that been like for you, especially kind of going from, you know, reporter your freshman year to, you know, sports editor and kind of taking a different role for that type of stuff?
I love The Torch. Absolutely love it. My time as a reporter was terrific because I got that writing experience. Writing journalistically, as you guys know, is obviously much different than writing for like your English class, right? So it's a very different style of writing, much more professional, much more concise. And those are great skills that I've learned and I'm going to be able to use going forward. And then moving to be the editor last year, this is my second year now as a sports editor, it's been great because I've learned how to use the InDesign program, which is, you know, I wouldn't have had experience with that program if I hadn't been a sports editor. And I've also learned how to, you know, manage like a small group of people. Now, obviously, you guys make it super easy for being good at your job. I don't have to do anything crazy, you know,
heart emoji
like a boss. But no, it's good because I get to be sort of in charge, I guess, if you will, of my little micro section of the sports. So that's been good experience. And then I still get to write when I want to, which is also nice because I kind of throw myself back in as that reporter. And I've been talking about opportunities at Ferris, and I just feel like The Torch is another opportunity that we've been able to take advantage of, and it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, especially being able to be involved not only within the journalism aspect, the communications aspect, being able to meet coaches and players, just talking about the interaction you've had and just being able to not only like know these players when they're competing, but also getting that personal side of them, being able to interview them and see them after the game for post game and stuff like that.
Getting to know players and coaches is definitely one of the best parts of my job as an intern and my role as the sports editor, previous role as sports reporter. It's just so cool when you like talk to a player or something on the phone. And this is especially true for us, I feel like, because COVID, you know, we had to talk to everybody on the phone.
Right.
Talking to these players on the phone or coaches on the phone and then getting to see them in person and they like remember who you are is one of the best feelings ever. And you kind of have that connection because, oh yeah, we've talked before about the sport that we're playing right now, which is just really cool. And it's almost like it's not quite a strictly professional relationship, right? Because you're asking them questions that matter to them. But that sense of just like connection as reporter and as intern to these players and coaches that you just wouldn't have otherwise is something that's so cool. And you know, I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, you're going to, you know, football media day right after this too. You know, what's been the, you know, best sport to interview for, especially like meeting coaches and stuff?
Oh man, that's a tough question because I don't really think that any of them are bad or like, and I'm not like, oh, I have to go interview for this. You know what I mean? So personally for me, of all the sports at Ferris, I enjoy hockey the most, which is odd because I'm not like an NHL fan or anything. Yeah. But for Ferris, I love hockey. I love Coach Daniels obviously is great, and the players, the atmosphere they have there is just awesome. Being D1 helps for sure with hockey. But football media session is also really cool. Just getting to talk to someone as successful as Tony Annese is also awesome. So I would say hockey and football are probably the ones that I look forward to the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Shameless plug, sneak peek. Might have Coach Daniels on soon. Don't want to spoil it too fast here. But Brody, it's been a pleasure. One more question for you. We ask every athlete, staff member, coach we bring on the show. What's been your favorite thing about being here in Big Rapids and being a Bulldog?
I've kind of alluded to it a couple times, but I'll break it down into two different things. The best part about being at Ferris is absolutely the opportunity. At a small school like this, there's just so much potential for students to learn and to get hands-on experience with things that you just really wouldn't at a big-time university. And then the other thing I'll say is the people. Like you guys, people in the program, friends that I've met elsewhere, professors like Dr. Allspa, and then like you guys talked about players and coaches. Just being a smaller school, you get to make a tight-knit community of people where you know everyone a little bit, which is really cool. So I would say the opportunity that we have as students to really experience what it's like to be in the field we want to be in, and then the relationships we meet with the people from doing that experience, I think those are the two things that I would say I love the most about Ferris.
Very cool.
Yeah, Brody, thank you so much for coming on the show, taking time. Good luck with the interviewing and stuff like that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Having a blast on the Ferris Fantasy Football Podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Big thanks to Brody for joining us. Great friend, great staff, great hard worker.
Yeah, Brody's an absolute gem. What a guy. Love him to death. Absolute pleasure to have him on the show. We're going to hop into the Ferris State Sports Report. Brandon, what we got on deck?
Let's go to do hockey. Why don't
Let's
we?
go do that hockey.
Let's
go do that hockey.
Let's do that hockey. Borderline favorite SNL video I've ever seen.
That is pretty top tier.
It's
SNL
up
doesn't
there.
really push out a lot of good content lately, but that one was one of the best ones. But hockey was out in Bemidji State last weekend, tried to get the sweep after the 2-2 tie win in the shootout on Friday. Wasn't able to get the job done. Lost in OT on Saturday. Good showing. Not going to lie, Bemidji was a team that upset St. Cloud State just the week before. We're a top 20 ranked team, and they were able to come in. We were able to shock them first game. We played pretty solid. Logan Stein had just a great game, too, as well, but just a little bit short on the second day.
Yeah, it comes down to this, and we've said this going into this year and really in years past. We can play with anybody, anywhere, anytime, but we just only get 2 points or 3 points sometimes where we need 6. We only get 1 out of the 2 games. That's really been the difference maker, I think, in a lot of our campaigns in recent memory. And I think this was a really good game and a really good weekend overall. I mean, really mentioning Friday's game. I mean, as you mentioned, Joe, getting the win in the shootout, 1-0. I mean, we saw a lot of good things, especially the fight back in the second period where Bemidji was starting to get on a run there after scoring just before the first period and then early into the second when they took that 2-1 lead. And I mean, they answered 1 minute after that Tyler Schleppe goal to start it all off. So you knew, I mean, being the number 20 team in the country, the Beavers bring a lot of challenges and they bring a lot offensively and defensively. Momentum swings is something that they really like to do. They like to get on you in bunches, and you could see it right there. And we responded very well, really dug our feet in and just defended as much as we can. And that ended up getting us in good position. Austin McCarthy had the equalizer. We held him off in the third period and the overtimes and then ended up winning it in the shootout. So I'd be very interested to see. I mean, we'll obviously get to CCHA Player in the Week here later on as the announcements will be made. But, I mean, Logan Stein was fantastic.
He's him.
He's
that guy.
I mean, 41 saves on 43 shots on Friday. Fantastic.
Dude's a brick wall.
Yeah, it was really a phenomenal showing from him. And, I mean, overall, you saw a lot of great things from all across the board. I mean, Schleppe able to score with the assist from Blake Evano, as well as McCarthy scoring from McLaren and Brad Merrick. So I think you saw those things. I mean, Logan Stein got one of the stars from the hometown announcing crew, so that just shows how great of an outing he had from the other team's perspective. But I mean, we really saw a lot of great things overall in this game, and I think the biggest thing, Joe, was we were able to put our feet down and we were able to skate with them that third period, and really ride this thing out, because they came at us with a vengeance in that third period, especially out shooting us 12-5.
And that's a breath of fresh air as well, because when you look at what we were able to do last year in the third period, it was pretty lackluster, and to see that we're actually, keeping the foot on the gas and able to match energy is something that's really, really important. Also, shout out to Noah second day. 34 shots, 32 saves. It was a great outing for him. It's just offense kind of couldn't get it picked up. Brad Merrick scored the lone goal for the Bulldogs in the second showing. But I think the one thing that the team just has to work on is just really trying to strive for not OT wins or anything like that, because picking up 3 points is going to be crucial. The CCHA is wide open right now. If we swept Bemidji last weekend, we would have been top or near close, second or third in CCHA standings. But now, we're a little bit past the halfway point at the bottom. But that just shows how close the CCHA is going to be as soon as, the second half of the season starting up. Minnesota State, they're, I think, 7th right now, but they aren't as good as they were last year. Northern's kind of starting to be able to pick it up, where they're going to they have a chance to run away with the CCHA. But, Bemidji, Bowling Green, Michigan Tech, us, we're right there with each other, and we can really do some damage between those four, as well as Lake State. So it's just kind of making sure we can get those 3 points secured rather than going into OT. But still, to be able to see how much we've improved in the third period so far this season compared to last year is leaps and bounds better than what we've been seeing.
Yeah, and you could kind of tell a little bit in that Saturday game, kind of rewatching it. It definitely looked like we were a little out of sync when it came back in that first period. Bemidji, you could definitely tell, took the momentum, especially. I'm sure they were a little upset for how that result ended up on Friday. I'm sure they would have liked to get the sweep, so they came out with a vengeance. But we really responded well. Especially going down 1-0 early, able to match the momentum, like you said, Joe. I think that was crucial.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, as I look at the standings, I believe we're seated right now at 5, and we're really not far behind Bemidji and Bowling Green as far as win percentage is concerned. They both have 2 wins as opposed to our 1, but Bowling Green has 4 losses. We only have 2, so we just haven't played as many games as them yet. So we can make that catch up with a couple wins over the next couple weeks here before the holiday break.
And that's just with the bye that we had.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely going to be interesting how it shakes out later on. But no, I think you're right. Northern as well as Bemidji, both those top tier teams, but they've dropped some games earlier this year. And Lake State's a team that we were looking at watching coming in, and they haven't really performed their best out of the gate as well as Michigan Tech. So really right now we can't really make the projections at the moment. We've only seen these teams for 6 weeks. There's a lot of hockey left.
We haven't even reached the second half of the season yet.
No.
We're still at the first part of it.
Yeah, so it'll be a while there, but I think overall, we didn't see as many penalties especially the Saturday game, but this weekend overall, as we had seen a while, and sometimes that gets you a little bit. I wouldn't call it out of the funk or whatever, but sometimes when you're used to playing on the kill or on the power play so much, that 5-on-5 hockey for 20 minutes feels like very taxing. So you can definitely see that a little bit in those games. But 2 straight overtime games, those guys were really tired. They were really grinding as much as they could. And I really love to see the fight from this team against a ranked team and able to get a split from them on the road. It's just been our number, I guess, over there at their place. But great points. And anytime you take down a ranked team when you're unranked, that just shows they played well.
And I think that's going to be the mantra for this team so far. We got Mercyhurst, who's a sort of good opponent. I don't think they're near the top 20, but we're going to have to play kind of upset throughout the year for CCHA, especially against teams like Minnesota State, Northern Michigan coming up later in I think in 2 or 3 weeks in the schedule. And you got Michigan State as well coming to Van Andel, especially at the Great Lakes Invitational. They're a team that's starting to pick it up in the Big Ten as well. So that's going to be kind of the situation for the team, is just really, you're going to be playing underdog most of the time for this year, but that's one thing that we really like to do, especially what we've been seeing so far this season.
Yeah, be really interested to see how we play against Mercyhurst. That game will be at 1 o'clock. First 600 students, fans that fill the dog pound will get in free. So that gives you an incentive to come to the game, y'all. It's free hockey. What gets better than that?
Yeah, nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon.
So, yeah, it'll be fun.
Football's not going to be home. Might as well.
Yeah, might as well.
You
So
can tailgate in the parking lot. There's a big parking lot.
I guess you'll set up those like pop-up canopies and tents all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be very interesting. But
It'll be a nice time.
so yeah, I mean we'll have Brendan McCallion back on the ice here at Ingleglaben. That'll be nice to see.
That'll be cool.
Wearing a Mercyhurst jersey, but super fun. Shout out to him and Justin we had on the show this last year. It was a privilege having them in the studio and playing for us. So kind of cool to see the whole circle come around. I mean we played Canisius earlier this year. Now we're getting to play Mercyhurst and see a couple old friends, and it's always fun just to get back together and have those reunions.
It is a pretty sick thing to see. But we're going to hop into football now. Hop on over to the gridiron. Great game from the Bulldogs against Davenport. Undefeated Davenport at the time. Big win, 28-7. Absolutely dominated on the defensive side. Held them to, under 200 yards total or something like that. I know it was less than 100 yards rushing, which was surprising seeing of how dominant their running back looked right out the gate. That guy was a monster, but we just really picked it up on the defensive side. Got a pick 6 from Justin Payout, which was huge. Another interception as well, and then defense just kind of held it down with getting 3 sacks in total. But hey, that was a big one. Moved us up in the rankings a little bit. Played a little bit of Cinderella killer, I guess, with Davenport having a better season than what they've been having the past couple years. But hey, got in there, did business, fight another day.
2 words: they're back.
They're back, baby.
The defense is back, and boy, did they make an absolute showing of this game. I mean, we'll only hold them to 183 yards of total offense, 11 first downs, 23% on third down. That's lights out right there. Absolutely fantastic. 24 yards on the ground. They got up front. That's nothing compared to what they saw coming in. They had a little bit of two-dimensional offense, which was making them really, really good team, and that's why they were undefeated coming into this game. So, I mean, we really saw our running game flourish a lot with using Marcus Taylor in a lot of variety of ways, as well as C.J. Jefferson. I thought had a really good game as well. But I think, you see Malik coming back too. We saw Carson have a little bit of fumble issues. But I mean, he still played very solid overall. Getting Malik back, seeing him on the field definitely brought some energy. But I think, our running attack was fantastic, and I think our defense was even. I mean, it's hard to really give credit to more than one side, but the defense just absolutely lights out.
Yeah, crazy. It was funny too because Davenport's running back is named Khalif Jenkins. Their announcers kept calling him the Beef.
The Beef.
Funny. That was a good time. But yeah, it was a super fun game to watch. I mean, rain held off just until the end. Unfortunate because I had to walk back to my car and I got soaked, which was tough to look. But it was a good time. I will say this though. It gets annoying when people don't quiet down in the old press conference and when you're in charge of making sure nobody talks or whatever. That's what went down.
Did you lay down the law?
I had to, man. I had to lay down the law a few times. There's
no talking, please.
Couple people being a little loud in the back, and I was like, yo.
Get out.
Shut up.
Game time. Yeah, Joe means business. Let me tell
you
what.
Man. Well,
I mean, you must.
When I'm given responsibilities, I got to make sure it's down, you know?
Yeah, did you go Paul Blart Mall Cop mode?
No, I just yelled at people.
Oh, okay. That's fair. If you go Paul Blart Mall Cop mode,
illusion.
Yikes, look out. But no, I thought this was a great game overall. I heard the press conference. I thought it was really good. So
I felt like this game was expected that we were going to – I thought it was going to be like this anyways. A lot of people said it might be kind of a closer game where Davenport was going to light up the scoreboard a little bit. But I knew, especially with how our defense played last week and then going into this week, they were going to start to do a pretty quick turnaround. And, first quarter was kind of like a little slow how we usually do. But then once it hit second quarter, I mean, we started to really flourish and play really well. I mean, Murph played really well. Ian got on the little old participation with a sack as well. So pretty good stuff to see.
Yeah, Lareola Depot was fantastic.
Dude, he was insane.
3 sacks in this game, as well as Murph added 1. But I think you just saw, I thought our DBs played really well.
They shut down a lot of the over the middle.
Oh, yeah. They really got nothing over the middle. I mean, Jason Whitaker was 18 of 31. That's not a bad percentage statistically, but 159 yards, 2 picks. I mean, you could tell he was having fits. I mean, just rewatching this game, you could tell that what I was watching, at least, he was a little flustered on where to throw the football. And I mean, you could see, especially on that flat route that he threw and that Paya picked off, went 43 yards. I mean, you could just tell, after that, they were a little This is weird. There's guys open, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like, where do I go? So, I mean, I thought we played really well defensively, offensively, got the job done. Still some kinks to figure out. I mean, love to see us hold on to the football and not have as many turnovers. But I think the penalties were also a very positive thing. Only 6 penalties in this game, especially with the chaos that ensued on the ejection. So
that was tough.
Yeah,
that was a pretty funny thing though.
Yeah, none of our guys rejected though.
Yeah,
they stood their ground and did it the right way. So
Tony Nese even said in the press game or in the post game press conference, he said that like that was the best officiated game he's ever been a part of. So.
Yeah, so
which is true. It was a very solid officiated game.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that they deserve the credit too. So, but yeah, definitely saw a lot of great things and really. The mojo for this team now, I think, after this weekend. You can tell it's back. Yeah, it's back, especially with playing Wayne State at the end of this week, which we'll talk about more Thursday. But that's going to be a good little precursor going into the NCAA selection, where we're going to see for playoffs. We did move up a couple spots in the old regional rankings, which was huge. Moved to number 2 after Pitt State had a little bit of a rough go of it with who they had to play. I forget who it was. But yeah, number 2 in Super Region 3 rankings, just behind Grand Valley. So that kind of gives us a little bit, I won't say easier or better, but just gives a little bit more of a chance to where we can host 2 games instead of only 1 in the playoffs, which is pretty sick. Yeah, the fact that they saw Pittsburgh State 1 and they went to 10-0, but they still put us over them at 8-1 shows you how highly they think of this football team. Yeah. And I think that should go to credit for the way that they played, especially defensively, because everybody out there, every analyst in Division II, small college football knows, like, this defense can be absolutely electric. And our offense has the big playmaking ability to make us a national championship contender, right? And when they see us playing at our best, which really from the Grand Valley game, the Tech game, they weren't seeing our best. No. Everybody that you'd ask on that team knows that. Now they're actually dialed in, back at it, and really going to make a statement against Wayne to really try to get our seating solidified and start making a run, baby. Here we go. Yeah, it's going to be some pretty sick stuff, and can't wait to see what they're able to do for the end of this week. We'll hop on over to basketball a little bit, Brandon. Not much been playing, but GLIAC preseason has come out, as well as the preseason first team and second team for both men's and women's, Brandon. So we'll hop into that. We'll start with the men's side. Men's top of the polls so far for preseason. That's what we like to see. Yes, sir. Northern Michigan, Lake Superior State, and Michigan Tech are 2, 3, and 4, and kind of the rest are all the rest. But it is preseason, so it might change up a little bit. But I'm pretty excited to see what this team is able to do. I mean, we talked about the Michigan game a little bit, which we only lost by 13, 14 points? 13 was the final. That was pretty huge for the program. Love to see that. But this is going to be a season that's kind of going to be a definition one, losing Dorian and Walt and Lee, some guys who are really great scorers, as well as Logan. Excited to see what some guys do stepping up into new positions. Yeah, absolutely. I had the privilege of seeing this team play down in Chrysler on Friday night, and I thought it was a really solid game. I mean, there was some times where you could just tell the momentum was going in Michigan's favor, playing on the home floor, and they were getting shots to fall left and right, especially Jet Howard. That guy looked absolutely ridiculous offensively. But I thought our guys really fought very well. And I mean, that's a really generic thing to say, I know that. But the way that they were able to out-rebound this team at majority portions of this game, they were out-rebounding Michigan. They had only 12 turnovers in the entire game, which really was like, I want to say 6 at halftime. So they're limiting turnovers under the big lights on the big stage against the best team in the state, arguably, in college basketball. And I thought, getting offensive rebounds, they just really didn't fill the basket as much, I think, as they would have liked to. And still ending up scoring 75 points. That's nothing to be ashamed of at all. It was just really a battle down the stretch. And I thought the last 6-7 minutes, I think we played very, very, very well, moving the ball in transition, able to get a lot of open looks and able to knock them down. Just would have loved to see that in the beginning of the game, because then you never know. It could have been a much more closer game. That's a lot of things to look forward to, especially with do they play this weekend? I forgot to check. I believe that they are going to be taking on Trevecca, and they're in that tournament down in Nashville to start the season. So Trevecca, Southwest Baptist, Northern State, Minnesota, Duluth. will be the teams that we'll take on. And then we'll have the Thanksgiving Classic coming up as well. But those will all be like the Northern Minnesota Duluth games are an extra week away. But Trevecca and Southwest Baptist down in Nashville Friday, Saturday this week. So be able to watch them in action. So I thought there was a lot of great games from this team so far this season. I thought Solomon Aragbu showed a lot of great things in that Michigan game as well, as Amari Lee and the backcourt. I think those guys are playing really good. I thought Veas played very well, especially with his task taking down,
trying to shut down Hunter Dickinson.
I thought he did a really good job too.
They're the same height, but just Hunter looks like he just got a little bit more.
Well, Veas is like 2 inches shorter.
Is
Nate
he?
Clarabot is the same height though.
Oh,
he did get some minutes against him, and that was kind of fun. He actually made I think like his first time he checked into the game in the second quarter, that he came in against Dickinson and immediately scored in the post, and then they went down the other way, and Dickinson wanted back at him, and they got him the ball on an ISO on the block, and I think that Clarabot ended up getting a foul, but he almost blocked him. It was almost like a complete momentum change from when Clarabot came on. So he's got a lot of good potential, and I think a lot of our other guys too. Ethan Erickson was good shooting the ball. Ben Davidson, he started to get it down in the later in the second half, starting to dial his shot in a little bit and get to the rim. But I think overall the aggression of this team, just got to move the ball a little bit more. I think they played a lot of ISO ball, which, I mean, against Michigan, playing a man-to-man, you can see that coming a little bit. But when this team moves the ball around and they find open shooters and open lanes, I mean, they're as talented as anybody in this conference, and if not Division II.
Yeah, for sure. That's thing that we got to look out for. Ben Davidson and Solomon Regbu made second team All GLIAC for the preseason. No Bulldogs made the first team All GLIAC preseason squad. But over on the women's side, Ferris is going to be number 2 on the preseason poll, just trailing Grand Valley. They tallied 72 points in voting for preseason, while Grand Valley got 81, so just missed out on that one. But women's team is looking pretty scary as well.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of firepower for sure. I mean, we saw a little bit of that in Toledo. But obviously that team was very talented. But I think it's going to be starting up this weekend for them as well. Ohio Dominican and Cedarville, the 2 early matchups here for this November slate. And then they'll be at home, I believe, next Wednesday, the 16th at 5:30 will be their first game against Northwood. So that'll be a fun game to watch for sure. But I think that you see what this team really has, and I mean, obviously with Chloe and Mallory being on the second team already, those 2 are going to be an immediate factor. And then you got a lot of other really talented players, I mean, especially coming in, a lot of transfers or a lot of underclassmen, like Kenzie Bowers, of course, being from Kent City. They'll be the local story this season as well. Ariel Jenkins will be back after being missing last season on injury. Seeing that, the development, a lot of the guards as well. In the backcourt behind Blanchard and McCartney will be very interesting to see. But I think you have a lot of opportunity for growth off of last year's team, and I thought last year's team played absolutely fantastic. So you're going to see a lot of great things, I think, from this team as well. And I think this team shows a lot of great depth. I think last year there was quite a bit of depth, but this year it could be even more with the high class of recruits that they got coming in this season.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I'm looking forward to is Kenzie Bowers, especially in the guard position, seeing what her and Mallory are going to be able to do and kind of sharing that, and as well as Caden going to be able to see what her role is this year especially. I mean, she was someone who could really light it up around the arch and be able to get a spark going for the team, but that one's going to be, those 3 are going to be an exciting trio to watch, especially with ball movement and stuff like that. Amaka Unabaga as well is someone that I'm looking forward to this year. She kind of started to flourish near the end of the season, really picking up some minutes and starting to kind of be not a centerpiece, but one person who really came off the bench and was able to, produce well. So this year's going to be something where I think it could really be a breakout year for her, depending on what she's able to do and staying healthy with stuff like that. But basketball's right around the corner, Brandon. Already getting going. Season's almost starting up for regular season. Can't wait to see it.
Yep, already on the move. Really got to jump on the train or you're going to lose it.
True.
It's getting on quick, fast, in a hurry, let me tell you. But
it's moving.
Yeah, absolutely. But transitioning over now, volleyball will be in action. GLIAC tournament week starting on Wednesday. So the day
tomorrow,
you get
baby.
This podcast released. Lake State coming to town for the open quarterfinal 1v8 matchup. A team we've beaten earlier this season twice, including October 24th, the recent victory against them on that Monday afternoon game, if those that remember, with all the elementary kids yelling and screaming everywhere. But no, it should be a really good contest. I mean, I think offensively they were really lights out Friday and Saturday. You saw a little bit of the momentum swings kind of going both ways. I mean, especially in the Davenport game, I believe in that second set where we got the momentum from winning or from losing that first set, and we kind of took it for a ride a little bit, and then we ended up kind of slowing down just a little bit, let them climb back into it. But I thought putting the hammer down, especially in those third, fourth sets with some of those big runs that we had offensively, really made the difference. And I mean, especially against a really good Davenport team, 13-4 in the GLIAC, 22-8 overall. We'll probably see them possibly in the NCAA regional rounds, potentially depending on seeding. But they're a really solid team. And I mean, right now, as the number 2 seed, with them in Northern, it's going to be a tough matchup either way if we continue to win and possibly see them down the road. But of course, it's always one game at a time, 1 point at a time, one set at a time, 1 point at a time. But Lake State will be the first round. I mean, we know this team offensively can overpower any team in this GLIAC as long as they're clicking, control the errors, control the tempo, control possessions, and then we'll be in great shape.
Yeah, that's going to be one thing to watch out for. They are 1-12 they are at the time when we last played them, they were 1-12, but obviously they've kind of picked up some more wins and stuff like that.
Yep.
But to be able to see where they're at now, it's going to be a tough task. I feel like Lake State's been a team that has been known to play upset every once in a while, but we're a team that's been pretty consistent these past few weeks, especially, ever since that Wayne State loss. I think we really got a fire going under us, and we really played solid all throughout those, especially this last homestand where we've just been playing really, really consistent, especially with, Kaylee Mott getting setter of the week again. For what, 6, 7, 8, whoever knows how many. Probably going to, ridiculous. But to be able to see, got first seed locked, going to be hosting tomorrow. Can't wait to work it,
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait to get after it.
I can't wait to be on the call again. I missed it over the last couple of days, but then it'll be November 9th, quarterfinals.
Hopefully it's a nice 3-0 sweep, so I can go to El Burrito after.
Oh, yeah, that'd be true. El Burrito does sound good. Quarterfinals November 9th. We'll be taking on Lake Superior State if we get a victory. Semifinals November 11th, Friday night. Wayne State, Michigan Tech winner will take us on, and then the championship will be on Saturday, November 12th, if we get that far. But I think it's going to be a fun matchup. Obviously, Wayne State, a team across that I'm sure that you would like to honestly play again, because this team knows that they can beat Wayne State. They beat them down in Detroit. Just had a little bit of a rough go around when we played them last. And it'll be nice to see them get revenge on that team. But Michigan Tech also not a really good team as well. So we'll see how that goes out. And obviously we'll cover that and everything that goes down on the Thursday show to preview that matchup and more as it goes forward. So, but beat Lake State. That's all you got to worry about. That's
going to be the huge one. Can't wait to see that. Can't get to the next round unless you beat the first round.
That's correct. Anyway, almost finishing out the next portion of the sports report. Soccer made it. We made the NCAA tournament. Congratulations to the women's soccer team. 6th seed going up against Ashland to start it all up for postseason play. That game November 10th, so tomorrow at 3 p.m. Thursday against the Eagles down in Cedarville. For that opening round. Going to be a fun matchup. Played this team earlier in the season. I was kind of looking back to remember parts of this game, and I do remember a lot of getting opportunities in this game. And even if you look back at the box score, you can see how it supports that, especially going into early part of this game. We outshot them 16-12 in this game. Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, they worked us outside quite a bit, and I think they just clogged the middle. Ashland's a very good defensive team, so I'm very curious to see how they counter that, because I think our offense has been really doing well working outside in. We've been able to get opportunities on crosses, get the ball in the box, and make something happen recently. So I'll be very interested to see what Coach Henson does, and we wish him the best of luck on the road, and hopefully they can advance and move on to see another game.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty cool to see, especially seeing Ashland. They're going to be a tough opponent, especially being, what's their conference name again?
Are they
in GMAC?
The GMAC? Yeah.
Oh, sick. Yeah, the GMAC's full of really good teams, so it's going to be an interesting one. But I think we're going to be able to do pretty solid, especially what we've been able to see. I don't know if Izzy's probably nursing that injury a little bit, so we might see her, might not. I know against Grand Valley she was playing like limited minutes for a little bit, right?
I want to say.
Just kidding. She played 90 minutes against Grand Valley.
She played
the whole game. So that's, pretty surprising, especially seeing that like a lot of the word around town was saying that like, it might be a season ender for her. But to be able to see that she was able to play that, it's going to be good. Ashland's probably going to really focus that. So spreading the ball around is going to be the move. But Daria, I feel like, is going to have a really good game. Defense is going to step up, and I think we can make it to the next round.
Yeah, Grand Valley really established the momentum right out of the gate, scoring a minute in that first half at home. I think definitely hurt us a lot. And then end up getting, Taylor Reed just went on an absolute tear later on in the game. But I think you just saw a lot of things overall from this team that showed a lot of fight. And we're willing to play everybody. Being able to see Avery Cole-Martin get a lot of minutes as well as a lot of those substitutes playing substantial amount of minutes, I think shows a lot for this team going into this postseason, that we're going to be rotating a lot of different players in. I think it'll be very interesting, and I think you look at where this team is at, I think overall, obviously you saw the offense kind of come to a little bit of a screeching halt. Not that it was a bad thing. We were still getting looks. We outshot Grand Valley 17-12, but there was definitely some times where it seemed like we rushed a little bit, just a little bit too anxious maybe to try to get it back, because, the outcome of this. Not the outcome of this game. Like what it means to this game, being in the semifinals, what you did to this team last year. You're really getting antsy to get back and equal it up. So you can kind of understand that for that perspective. But I think you still take a lot of it. You learn from it. And, we really looking forward to really get that mojo back against Ashland and move forward. And, hey, maybe we'll play him again. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully we do. It's going to be a good game.
I hope so. Anyway, finishing out the Ferris State Sports Report, GLIAC Cross Country Championships are concluded.
How'd it go, Brandon?
It went okay. I would say the least for myself. It was not what I wanted, but we still saw a lot of great performances. Shout out to Hannah Brock, second team All GLIAC on the women's side. She ran very well as well as I think everybody ran well. It did not please our expectations, which is a good and a bad thing, and here's why. We knew coming into the season that we were in the hunt to be in that top 5 spot. A lot of these teams really we started out a lot. I think the amount of growth that we saw from a lot of these teams last year as opposed to this year, I think we saw us start up higher than a lot of the teams ahead of us, but they just built a lot more, got more guys healthy, it seemed like, by the end of it. And just outran us in one race. And that's really all that comes down to. What we knew as a collective unit, we didn't race as we would have I'd liked to. We had a lot of great performances overall. But team-wise, we would have loved to have seen a lot better results. I know I individually did not race my best. I can guarantee you that. But I think the women also raced really well. I know they wanted to get more out of that race than we ended up seeing. But it was a solid weekend overall. Not the best, but definitely one that get you a little amped up for regionals to try to get the mojo back and get a little rejuvenation coming. You're here to finish out the season.
Yeah, for sure. And especially, it's not always the best thing to see not having the best race, especially in meets that it counts the most. But the good thing is you got indoor, you got outdoor coming up after that. So regroup, get ready, recover. It's game time.
That's all you can do. But we'll be back in action at Kenosha over at Parkside. For the Foot Locker course, if that's familiar to anybody, we'll be going there for the 10K regional final next Saturday, not this upcoming Saturday, but next Saturday over in Wisconsin. So that'll be fun. See where we'll stack up in the region. We've been a team that's been in top 10 conversations, so now in time to prove it. So we'll see how that goes, and really looking forward to week's worth of work. And really build from there. And like you said, really take that momentum and run with it the rest of the year. So,
looking forward to it, Brandon.
Should be fun. We'll be excited, I'm sure. I'm stoked to get back in the driver's seat again. I got unfinished business from last week, and I can tell you that. So, but no, it should be a really fun race, and I think we'll have a lot of great things to look forward to. But that's me, the Ferris State Sports Report. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. We'll recap the World Series and more here on the MBSP.
Nearing the 2-year anniversary of this podcast, Brandon and I have found that Anchor.fm is one of the only things that have been able to keep us up and going here in the studio. Anchor is a great way to distribute your podcast as well as edit and basically make sure that everything's running smoothly. If you want to start your own podcast, go on over to Anchor.fm. You can learn all the ins and outs of making your own podcast, distributing content, all that good stuff. That's what we use. That's what we recommend. Anchor.fm. Give it a shot. And we're back from our quick little break. I had to get a quick little water in my water cup so I wouldn't keep coughing or anything like that. Also, sorry, we're stumbling over our letters a little bit today. That's what happens when you usually take a week break from something. Takes a hot sec to get the rust knocked off, but we're here. We're ready to go. World Series. Hate to see it. Trash Stros won it. 6 games. Brandon, it's a sad day, really.
Sad day for America.
Sad day. Nobody wanted Houston to win except for maybe half the population of Texas.
Yeah, pretty much. It was a tough one to swallow as a society. I'm sure the vast majority was rooting for the Phillies, as certainly you could see why, for being such a good Cinderella team. But I think you saw a lot of interesting things over the World Series. I think you saw how much being able to hit consistently is important, because it definitely
hitting the ball is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the Phillies go so hot and cold, and I think that was one of the biggest things that kind of hurt them in the long run. Because I mean, being able to have 5 home runs in one game and then the next game get completely no hit, the momentum swing went completely to Houston. I mean, they just took it as a 1-game fluke, and then you could really just see how that progressed from there. But I think overall, I mean, you saw a lot of good matchups. I mean, especially the finale, finishing for our 5-4. I thought that was a very interesting game overall. Just the way that it went down in the end. But I think the fact of how the whole series went, I think just kind of made you show how much you can appreciate the game for how crazy it can be at times, just because, I mean, you looked at how the series came. It looked a little lopsided. Houston was definitely probably the favorite because they had won more games, and they overall were just the better team, roster-wise, statistically, and all that. But, I mean, Philly really got it moving a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, just that absolute bomb by Yordan Alvarez as well. Jeremy Pena was absolutely fantastic for Houston, and he played a fantastic series all the way around.
Yeah, especially with looking at what, like you said, Philly was very hot and cold, which was just the reason they lost it. But, all through Game 6, as soon as like the first or second inning went down, I was like, yeah, Houston's going to win this one, because they just looked in control all through there. And I mean, especially with winning the last 2, Game 4 and Game 5 before that, you just kind of knew that they were in control of it, and Phillies was kind of on their back heels a little bit, especially after the getting no-hit part. I feel like their bats just fell apart after that, and we saw that throughout the whole postseason. Like there'd be moments where they came up big and sent home runs to send them to the World Series and stuff like that. But Bryce Harper would have a couple good at bats in a row, and then he may go like 2 or 3 in a row where he wouldn't really be able to do much. And that was kind of the story of the whole lineup, where they just seem to have 1 or 2 off moments where they either went big or went home. They didn't really get much going on of just taking walks or anything like that, or really trying to get runners on base and playing the small ball part of it. They definitely were, going for the Schwarber bombs, going for Harper hitting it far, Bohm going deep. I mean, Rhys Hoskins, Nick Castellanos, you have so many big hitters in that lineup that when it comes to a moment where you have to stay disciplined and you have to make it so that way, hey, we might not need a hit here, let's just get a walk, or let's take this 10 pitch at bat and stay disciplined. And then it ends up where, you let a ball go by, and, especially with Castellanos, I think he had like a 10 or 11 pitch at bat in Game 6.
I remember that.
Terrible call. I will say that terrible call of the cutter on the inside that he called a strike, where the ball didn't even cross the plate. I don't understand how you call that. And he called it a strikeout on him. That really kind of just was a story of what Philly was going through, I think. Not saying that like the game was like pitted against them or anything, because they just kind of fell apart, but it just kind of seemed like they weren't really getting any breaks going their way, and Houston was just getting all of it, especially in 5 and 6, being at home, being in front of Houston fans. It was funny. My favorite part about this whole series, though, is Phillies fans, when like Houston fans would be in Philadelphia and like they'd be like flipping them off and be like Astros suck and stuff like that, and they'd be like getting mad at them. And then you see Kate Upton flip off a Phillies fan, all the Phillies fans are going crazy. I'm just like, this is exactly what you guys were doing to Houston. Like, I don't understand what the thing is. It was funny, but yeah, wish the Astros didn't win. I think everybody in the world didn't want them to win, but they did. Hate to see it. We'll see next year if they're gonna be good. I don't know. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, especially
good
in
for
that.
Dusty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, do it for Dusty. I think that was the coolest part. Getting but Dusty Baker, his first World Series title as a manager, was super cool. But I mean, especially in that finale, I mean, you saw Philly get finally the momentum. It was a really, really, I wouldn't call it like boring game, but it was a very dull game. That's what it was, a dull game in that finale until like the 6th inning, where, I mean, you saw Philadelphia get on the board, and then, I mean, Astros just went at it momentum-wise, just absolutely took the I mean, being at home, I mean, that place was absolutely just I don't think you could even hear anything in the stadium after Alvarez went deep with that 3-run homer straight center. I mean, that was an absolute bomb, by the way. Like, what, 460 that was measured at? Yikes. But I think overall the pitching for Houston was something that was very underappreciated throughout the series. I mean, you saw only, I believe, 2 games where the Phillies got over 3 runs. I think I want to say game 1, right, 6-5 in extras, and then the 5 home run game that
After
they got 7-0. So the other games 5-2, 5-0, 3-2, 4-1. I mean, pitching wise, they were dominant. So I think you saw a lot of great things from them as well. But I mean, Houston's just a great team, and it's just a shame that every time that they're going to win something, people are just going to be asking questions because you just can't outrun the past sometimes.
This legacy they left, and it was a bad one because they cheated straight up.
Tell us how you really feel, Joe.
I think we've already heard how I feel many a time. But
yeah.
Bregman had a pretty good game, pretty good series, 238 batting average. Altuve broke the 300 threshold, as well as Yulieski Gurriel, and then Jeremy Pena, 400 on the series. I don't know if he got too many opportunities, but he was able to capitalize when they needed him most. So pretty solid batting, just with averages from on the Astros side. Like we said about Phillies, when they came up and got hits, they were big, but those were few and far in between. I think their best average was 280 from Alec Bohm, and other than that, I don't see many other guys over 220, which was kind of unfortunate for them. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. If you go up against a really good pitching staff that's going to keep you on your toes, and you can't really do anything else about it. So stuff to improve for them, I think. The big thing is going to be pitching for the Phillies. I didn't really feel like their pitching was super great throughout the whole time. They've more just kind of scooted away by how they were batting, which we saw especially during the NLCS against San Diego Padres. Just tough looks. Wish Philadelphia wanted out. I really wanted a series for the bell, but just can't win them all, I guess.
Yeah, now they'll focus on the Eagles. But I mean, they definitely had a great run there. I mean, taking out the Cardinals and then the Braves that were the previous world champions, as well as the Padres, who look like the favorites going out of the NL. But
too bad Tatis got that whole thing going on.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to see him play, but I think, I mean, you looked at what Houston did. They took out the Yankees. They really had a good road there with just good fundamental play. They just have a great roster. But I mean, it was definitely cool to see like a 1 seed played a 6 seed in the World Series. That's what it needs to be in sports, right? That's what we look forward to in like March Madness every year, is to see some of these teams play. And our teams are already making moves, so it'll be very interesting what Philadelphia does, if they keep that roster around or if they try to build younger. The Astros for sure are probably going to sell and buy as they always do, but some other teams could go all in too. Like you saw the Mets show a lot of great things this year. It's just a shame that they absolutely tumbled into a bonfire by the end of the season, but they've already brought back Edwin Diaz, and they're trying to get Jacob deGrom to stay, and maybe even bring Aaron Judge over. Who knows at this point? But I mean, a lot of good things though. Still looking up for Philadelphia. I mean, obviously with the start of the Flyers season, as well as the way the Eagles have played. I mean, that's something that Detroit wants, Joe. You know, you just want to see the success all around in sports. Which, if you're a Detroit fan, you got to experience it last weekend.
Last week was a big one. Last week was a huge one. Pistons won. Red Wings swept the weekend. Michigan basketball swept the weekend.
Lions won.
Lions won.
Let's go.
I think it said this is the first time that the Red Wings and the Lions have won the same weekend since like December of 2017.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Too long.
To me.
Way too long.
But yeah, just that's ridiculous, which is sad. Sad to see. But hey, could happen next week. Could go back to back.
Yeah. And then
Who
back
knows?
to back to back.
Back to back to back.
A
It's
whole
going to be
month,
a snowball
a
effect,
whole
and it's going to
year?
keep on
No, I'm just
going.
kidding.
Dude, Detroit, though, I feel like we got a good chance of – I know we say this all the time, but, like, Detroit has a solid opportunity to really, like, turn a page here, especially with what they have for each team. I mean, each team right now, other than the Tigers, I'd say, has some solid young core that we can build around.
Yeah.
It's just the right steps that we got to take. I'm not sure if the Lions are going to be able to make the right steps because it's the Lions and it's the Fords, and they never really make the right decisions ever. But I think with either plan is going to work out. I think if you just maybe situate the coaching situation over in old Piston land, you might have a little bit different thing going on. Some people want what do you want, Brandon? Do you want Dwayne Casey fired, or do you want him to stay?
I'm torn because I haven't seen the team play consistently enough to see if it's really Dwayne Casey, because I've seen games where it's definitely been Dwayne Casey, but then there's nights where we just the momentum's not flowing our way. We're not able to get in transition. We don't shoot the ball well.
Yeah, it's just life, really.
But yeah, I think after this season with the loaded talent that we have, if we're barely or an under 500 team, I think, yeah, a coaching change honestly is probably inevitable.
I was going to say the same thing, but I know a lot of people that I talk to that like do watch basketball like religiously and just follow Detroit basketball. They want Dwayne Casey gone. So that's going to be a little situation going on for them. But like I said, Detroit sports, Brandon, we said it before on this podcast. We had many segments where we talked about it. It's on the come up, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I would say so. I think you look at a lot of great things. I think the overall morale of Detroit is improved immensely. I think with the people that we've brought in, regardless of how they've done on the actual surface, I think around it have made Detroit a much more pleasable, motivated, better city for sports overall. And I think there's no way to argue that.
Yeah.
I think what you want to see now is that momentum with the win column being filled. And I think you're seeing that a little bit with the Wings starting off. Obviously, we knock on wood for the season the rest of the way. But then you look at, okay, can the Pistons follow suit? We're kind of seeing them up and down. Lions, yeah, same way. And then obviously the Tigers, we know how that ended, but we've already taken the steps to really kind of retool that. But I think you definitely see a coaching change inevitably at the end of this season. I think if you're the Pistons under 500, just for the future of the franchise moving forward. But I think with the Lions, it'll be much more interesting to see how this team finishes out, because I know some people that would say that if he doesn't get to 500, then Dan Campbell's gone, and I know other people that say 3 wins and he's still there. So it's really a mixed bag, and I think that's going to really tell the tale of the difference between Martha and Sheila. I think if you see much more aggressive move made at the end of this season as opposed to next, but it'll be just very curious because we've seen this before. Like, we know, it took how long for Patricia to get fired? No offense to him, but he was clearly not the fit after year 1, and it took 3 years to finally figure all that out. It'll be weird to now see Dan Campbell, who's a much more favored, liked guy. Yeah. If he's gone earlier,
and Martha
it means business.
Yeah, Martha even said, like, we're not going to get rid of him after this year. Like, we like what he's doing, like what he has, like, changed the program, especially with just culture-wise, and they want to see where he goes with that. But it's going to be an interesting thing, especially seeing, like, that's the thing. You want to have a coach that the players like, which the players definitely do like Dan Campbell, but it's just like, we want wins.
You can be likable but not win games.
Yeah, exactly.
Those people get fired 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
It's unfortunate too.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because the fans like Dan Campbell.
A lot.
They like what, Detroit grit and what that stands for. But, if we can't get a couple wins the next couple, because how many times we're going to say we just need to tank a little bit more and then we're going to be fine.
Don't say that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
We never want to tank.
We don't want to tank, but then it's like we get halfway through and it's like, well, Detroit can still get like the second pick if we just lose out.
Right.
And then it's like right now I think we can get like the third or something like that. But if we keep winning, then we're going to move down. But then also it's just the thing of like, why don't we just move around and try to make some moves and trade and stuff like that. But I don't know what the whole deal is with that situation.
Yeah, for sure. But I'll be very interested because obviously with like the way that the whole coaching corral has gone this year for the NFL, because there's quite a few teams that have even said like, yeah, we might not have our same coach at the end of the year. And 2 of those teams already dismantled their coaching staffs already. I mean, the Carolina Panthers were first with Matt Rule, and now the Indianapolis Colts let Frank Reich go. So then you see that kind of go out, and the whole thing with Jeff Saturday is very interesting to see how that went about. I don't know if you saw that, Joe. Just the whole hiring process of that was weird. It was only 12 hours or something that they took to decide that. I don't know.
They had to have had him in mind or something like that.
Yeah, and you wonder how that kind of goes because Jeff Saturday and Jim Irsay have known each other a long time. Yeah. So you almost wondered if this was going before.
Strike me as a head coach type of guy. I mean, I know he was the captain of the team with Peyton, and he was like the center and stuff like that.
Right. He was a high school coach that was not that successful though. I mean, he finished his 4-year career over like 5 games over 500. Yeah, he did turn that team around and get them to the state semis or the state quarterfinals or something in the 2 years, but it's just really weird to see how that whole thing, because like I
just feel like a big jump is like, hey, I turned this high school around in football. You see that? Okay, yeah. You want to be the head coach of the Colts for a little bit to see if you fit? That'd be weird. Like that would be like my high school. Like we were terrible. Our coach like turned on the program like 3 years to now like where we were like almost undefeated, went to the playoffs and stuff like that. Like we've been in the playoffs like the last 3 years. That would be like him getting a call from the Colts and be like, hey, loving what we're seeing over there. You want to coach for us for like a week or 2 just to see what goes on? Yeah. That'd just be I just don't understand that.
Yeah, especially if he like played.
I know it's just a relationship
for, like,
though.
The thing, yeah. It's really like this is how it would. This is not like, it's no offense to Jeff Saturday, but like, would you think that some people would want to have like Peyton Manning be in that spot over Jeff Saturday? And that's no offense to him. We just don't see Jeff Saturday as a coach. That's the whole thing this thing is all about. Mm-hmm. Because if it was Peyton Manning, we'd have a much different conversation through the same process of the 12 hours.
Yeah, because I feel like with a center, the thing is with center and quarterback, they are much of the same because they know the plays. They are captains on the offense. Like they basically run the whole show. However, center and quarterback, although they're similar, they are incredibly different just because of what you have to do as a manager of like your own skill set and what you're doing in your position. Right. With Peyton, like he has to understand like wide receivers, how they're going to move, how DBs cover and stuff like that. All centers really have to do are kind of cover just the rushers, like especially who they're on, linebackers, and kind of recognize close interior defense schemes rather than the thing as a whole because you're not really seeing and making those decisions. So it's interesting that they chose him. I know exactly why. It's just because he was a captain and he was like basically Mr. Colts for his whole career. So I think that's the main reason why. And plus he's probably just been talking to whoever it was that hired him. But
yeah, he's been close with the Irsay family, and I think that does have something to do with it. The most interesting thing that I have, because like Jeff Saturday's a great analyst. Like he knows football.
He knows what he's talking about.
You hear it on ESPN. He knows football. Just the whole way this thing has went down has been questionable. The whole thing's been questionable.
It's been a little suspect.
Because they fired Frank Wright. Within 12 hours, they hired Jeff Saturday, which is 1,000% not the orthodox method when you fire a coach. It's you take the time through the rest of the season and you let somebody coach interior-wise. One, that you want to get a look at anyway, and 2, so you don't really like mess anything up going with the way that the season's flown already. Like Jeff Saturday's going to have to go in and either run Frank Wright's system for a whole year with the coaches, or he's going to have to try to change everything before week 18 going into the offseason. By then it's too late. Mm-hmm. Like that's just the timing of this is you just can't ignore it. Mm-hmm. It is weird. And there's something going on that I think that it would be very interesting to know why they went in this direction. Because if it works out, then people are going to be like, well, how'd you do that? Like, we'd love to see this team do really well after firing our head coach halfway through the year and changing everything. So it's just a lot of unknowns. Make this very interesting. Sus, as the kids may say, you know?
Suspect.
Indeed. Very interested. See how the Colts do. Maybe the Lions will have more wins than the Colts by the end of the year.
Who knows? Also a little bit detrimental to those fantasy owners of people who are on the Colts. But
yeah.
Going to see how that goes with it. As I am a now disappointed Michael Pittman Jr. owner.
Yeah.
Had a lot of potential at the start of the year, but now he's starting to fall apart. But hate to see it. That's how it goes.
That's how it goes. And we'll just have to wait and
Life
see.
goes on.
That's true. If you're a Colts fan, that we do offer support for you. Maybe you want to ventilate on the show. You can hit us up on the MVSP on Instagram and Twitter. We got spots for you, so make sure you reach out to us and we'll get you in the studio. Got some great interviews coming up and more throughout the rest of the
Pretty
semester.
special content coming up, people.
Yes, postseason is upon us. You're going to want to know the matchups. We'll give them to you, all the analysis, stats, and more here on the show. So make sure you subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are on. We're still gaining some. And dadgummit, follow us on YouTube. You guys are missing some great content over there. I'm
YouTube's
telling
kind
you
of picking
what.
up for us. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, we got a
We
lot
get
of
a good amount
feedback.
of listens on YouTube.
Yeah, we got a lot of feedback on some of our talks about the Ferris State football field controversy. So
Yes, sir.
you might want to go check that out and see what we're talking about there. But be sure to subscribe. Make sure you follow us on the next show, and that'll be coming out on Friday. But until next time.
Hey, take care, everybody.